What do you think?
I think we're dead meat. Real dead meat.
Go ahead and laugh, you guys. If I ever find a little bastards that did this, they're dead meat.
We are very excited to talk to you. We loved this movie. It was so good, and we didn't get a chance to see it until last week.
Yeah, we got a screener, which we were very excited about.
Yeah, which, like, I was really bummed about at first as the movie started, because we weren't feeling well. We were a little under the weather. We're watching it on our couch. There's a giant watermark on it to make sure we don't pirate it or share it. And so it's suboptimal conditions, to say the least. And while we're watching it, I'm like, man, this would be really great in a theater with a crowd. I hope it can win me over. 10 minutes in, we're sitting there together laughing our asses off and having a great time. It was able to win us over even with the worst viewing conditions, and I think that's a testament to the movie.
That is very kind of you. I'm sorry about the watermark. Thank you for sticking through it. I don't think you would have pirated it, so but is that a fucking barbarian milk bottle in the background?
Yes, it even has hair on it.
Yeah, it's got like little strands of hair on it.
Amazing what they're doing with promote, like, toys and stuff these days is amazing. Wow, very cool. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail the conversation. That caught my eye though.
No worries, man. I mean, we just briefly talking to you at Comic-Con at the after party. It was apparent that you're a true horror fan, a true lover of the genre and of the original Toxic Avenger, which we so dearly love. Chelsea's I Love the Monster shirt.
Yes. Oh God, I've had this shirt for maybe almost 10 years at this point, which is crazy.
Amazing.
Yeah. I love this movie, this world. There's something so like sincere and sweet about it, which I really like, and I think really translated to this new one. I don't know, I would love to hear more about just the tone of this new one, and maybe, I don't know, even some of the difficulties of translating something so kind of uniquely weird. Like the original is very sweet, but it also is extremely dark and grotesque, and at times very difficult to watch.
Sure. I'm glad you mentioned that though, because I think people remember the kid getting run over by the car and things like that, and that's part of the fun. But there is, I always felt like there was a sweetness to it, and sort of in the story, but just as much in the sort of the texture of how it's made. It had a handmade kind of go get 'em quality that was very appealing when I saw it at a young age. And like I saw it at a time when the tone of it and the way that they did their jokes and sort of sloppy violence for the point of comedy, like that's going to land with a 12-year-old. So we were primed to receive that movie very well. But more so than that was the idea that like it seemed like a bunch of folks that made this movie on their own. And prior to that, the movies that I was really excited about were large, expensive kind of Hollywood type stuff. And this was at a time when my buddies and I were trying to figure out how to make our own movies on VHS tape, on home camcorders. And so seeing something like this was very inspirational in that way. And that was kind of what in 2019 or so, Legendary got their deal together with Troma to do a new one, and they were soliciting pitches for the script. And they invited me to come in, and I didn't really have a story idea, but that's what I kind of said to them, was like the tone of the original, which is sweetness, which is this kind of handmade kind of quality. If we could sort of do a version of that, then that's, and in other words, not make it dark and gritty, not make it self-serious, not make it like we have to explain some scientific reason why the toxic waste gives him muscles. It's purple slop. Who gives a shit? Like that kind of thing. And the executive that I was pitching to at the moment, I didn't know at the time, but he was a huge Troma fan. He was like a former metalhead and Troma fan. And so he was kind of nodding along. And I was like, I am not going to get this job. But it turned, he was like, that's exactly kind of what he wanted to hear. And so that incrementally turned into a writing job. And so on and so on. But that was the initial thing, was like, let's preserve the tone and the vibe of the movie that we saw when we were 12.
Yeah, and I had a chat with Lloyd about the original and about this new one, and we were talking about how throughout all his films, and especially in the Toxic Avenger, there's just this rooting for the underdog. You know, it's an embrace of the weirdos and loving the people who society often casts aside or even ignores, and making them the hero. And I think that that's so prominent in the first Toxic Avenger. We also recently watched the second Toxic Avenger for the first time, and we're amazed by how nice and like culturally insightful it was. As Toxie goes to Japan in the 80s, we were expecting the worst, and it ended up being like actually really heartwarming, and that all comes through in your film as well.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I think the idea is like, we'll definitely, try to have some like monsters and sloppy stuff and have fun with sort of the genre elements. But I really wanted to approach it as, first and foremost, a comedy, and then sort of framing that as a David and Goliath story, an outsider who's taking on some sort of monolithic power structure. That's something that, to Lloyd's point, never goes out of style. Like, that's always going to be like something that people respond to. And so that's what I felt like, if we could sort of take that from the original and keep that tone and that spirit and that heart intact, and then do a new character that has a new situation and a new kind of like thing to go through, that would maybe be a way to, have it be reverential of the original, but not be like we're literally doing the exact same thing, and have it, bring up the question of, well, then why are you doing it at all if it's going to literally be beat for beat the same thing? So it was kind of trying to do both simultaneously, was the idea.
Yeah, there's even this kind of underdog feel style to the city. I said like halfway through that I really wanted to see your version of Little Shop of Horrors, because the city in this reminded me of like the kind of Skid Row of the movie version of Little Shop, or the movie remake of Little Shop of Horrors, at least. This kind of like set feel. Yeah, with every character wandering around is like an exaggeration of a person kind of feeling. Which is very trauma as well.
That was something we talked about a lot, was the idea that the world, the city that they're in, would be very kind of like decayed and run down and messed up, but you would like hanging out there. It's not so grim that it's a bummer. You kind of like being there. And a funny thing about that is, if you've seen David Blue Garcia's recent version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like that's the same town.
No shit.
That's a really, what?
I mean,
yes.
it's like we put, it's a backlot in Bulgaria where we shot, and so you get to go in and you get to paint everything whatever color you want, and you put new shop fronts on, and you get to sort of like detail it the way you want. But the actual, and there are shots in the movie when like Leatherface is chasing the kids around the like the orphanage and stuff like that. It's sort of like you can kind of see the structures of the buildings are the same thing. But
That's amazing.
It was a really fun place to shoot. It's like 2 blocks of kind of Anytown, USA, that just is there, and so we were lucky enough to get to shoot there.
That's so funny. Now that you say it, I'm like, yep, no, that's the exact same city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like how, so in this one, the villain is a CEO of a corporation that kind of runs the city, as opposed to the original where the main villain is more of like a mayor. And I feel like both of them are tapping into the just the people keeping everyone down that applies in both cases. But what was the decision to change it from one to the other?
I think it was kind of wanting Peter to be working at a company and have that, basically that's the villain. I mean, it's personified in the leader of the company, but it's like the company is this rapacious, destructive thing that's sort of like, bad for everybody except for a few people that are extracting all the wealth. And it just seemed like the most, more so than a mayor, it seemed like the most steep climb to make the hero have to have to do, like have to take on. So it was just sort of like, what's the biggest giant that he's gonna have to fight, and also just to distinguish it from the original and sort of give it its own little flavor. We put a mayor in there, but we made her, she's sort of like an accomplice to the CEO rather than the main driver of the evil stuff.
Yeah, that scene in the restaurant when Peter Dinklage confronts the boss and talks about how he's worked there for so long, and then they just find out that he's just a custodian, and so like they really ignore him and mock him and tease him. Like, it's so heartbreaking, especially when paired with the conversation he has on the phone with the health insurance. I thought that was so real and so funny, with the discussion of tiers and what doesn't get covered.
God,
I mean,
we've all had that phone call.
Yeah,
especially one where you're screaming to get a real person on the phone.
Yep, that's the start of it. She has heard me many times just say, speak to a customer representative. And, like, we own a house and run a business. I couldn't tell you what the fuck a tier in a health plan is. It's always so confusing. It's purposefully opaque. And I remember dealing it with, my father passed away a couple of years ago, and just dealing with all the red tape that goes with even just finding like end of life care. It was impossible and infuriating, and you can see that come through with Peter, who's obviously an incredible actor, and it really just gives this silly ultraviolet movie this emotional reality that hits you if you have any kind of familiarity with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my condolences for your dad, and everybody is going to be, I mean, I just felt like, look, as far as like making it relatable, it's sort of like it could be, like a mugger that steps out of an alley, or, I don't know, like it could be a spy satellite. But as villains go, a robotic, operator at an impenetrable insurance company, 9 out of 10 people in the audience are going to be like, yeah, fuck that dude. Like it's going to be relatable. And that was sort of my thinking of it. We can have him fight cackling bad guys as well, and that's awesome. But I did want sort of him to try and go through the proper steps, and have that not work. So he's sort of forced into a corner before it gets desperate, and he kind of takes more extreme measures, which lead to him becoming the Toxic Avenger. I hope I'm not spoiling too much, but that's okay.
Yeah, I don't know how spoilery we're allowed to get, because I want to be able to talk about everything. I'm hoping we can release this.
Let's talk about everything.
Okay, all right, cool. Because there's so much to dive into. Like, even as you lay it out there, I'm just like, yeah, man, like this script is really good.
It is, yeah. And I mean, it feels like Trauma in the sense that like every single character in it, I don't know, it just reminds me of the older Trauma movies, especially the other Toxie movies, in the sense that like all the other characters, especially the villains, are like all these really American archetypes that are just like these kind of like, I don't know, just like very uniquely American style villains. Like, I think of like the bikers in the original. That's like a very 80s kind of thing. And this new one, you have like a nu metal band, and like who we're obsessed with because we would absolutely go see them in concert. We're such like nu metal freaks.
Yeah.
Like, unironically, like
the Killer Nuts are one of my favorite additions to this movie and creations. And I just have to ask, were they aesthetically modeled at all after the Cottonmouth Kings?
No.
Damn it.
It's a good guess. The first thing was like, I was kind of thinking about the Boddicker gang in RoboCop, where you've got like, the biker guy and the disco guy, and it's like this mismatched gang of kind of cackling weirdos.
Yes.
That the hero has to fight. So I wanted our version of that, and then it kind of became it was sort of like a joke that got out of hand. Where like in the early days of talking to Alex Garcia, the producer on the movie, and he, sort of talking about bad guys, and he, we were having a conversation, and I said something like, it would be as if, think about if somebody like Slipknot or the Insane Clown Posse or Kiss or some band that has like a sinister theatrical stage presence, but they're actually like normal dudes. But what if they are actually sinister?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I said like, but not literally that, but something like that. And then time went on, and it kind of like it just sort of was like, no, actually, I think that is what it is. And so it sort of it was like a little snowball that we started talking about, and it gained momentum, and then it sort of we kind of committed to it, and then once you commit to that, then you're like, well, then we've got to give them songs to sing, and we've got to like we should probably put a concert scene in the movie or something like. So it gets out of hand very quickly, but it started out with just like, if they sing about being like psycho gangsters, what if they are actually psycho gangsters?
I love how unique each band member is. There were a
Yes.
few scenes
where we would rewind. This was the nice part of having a screener,
That's
because
true.
there was one scene where we rewound it a couple times to watch each one's reaction to something. I forget what it was.
I think it was when
it was when he gets shot in the
Yeah.
face.
Yelling at it? Yes.
yeah, exactly.
It was when he initially is.
And it's like, this is who you're supposed to go after.
Yeah.
And their reaction to that, each one
The
is doing something
B-boys
different.
doing like a little.
Yeah, just-
The
Yeah.
ones.
That guy is the Bulgarian breakdancing champion.
Oh my god, incredible.
Asked him because he's a legit great breakdancer. But yeah, it was fun to give each one of them, like, they have no business being in a band together because they're all like on different planets. But it was a lot of fun to give each one their own little, like, one's like sort of Lenny Kravitz, and one's like a black magic witch, and one, the Joker or whatever.
I know Lenny Kravitz guy looks like he came out of The Crow.
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
yes.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
Punisher 2 or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just the fact that they keep talking like, oh, the big concert's coming up, and the fact that it culminates in like, I don't know, what I kind of grew up with, where like I grew up in a town that was like, I don't know, like mid-size. Like, I'm from Metro Detroit, and we had like a Sterling Fest, which
The
is
Summer
like,
Fest, yes.
yeah, it's like suburban Michigan, and like that's what the big concert is like like that might have been the hardest I laughed the whole thing. It's just such a perfect, like, I don't know, just aesthetically, it made me so nostalgic, and I just love how seriously they took it. Just, I don't know, I just, like, totally, it just made me so happy.
Yeah, because, I mean, I was saying to you that, like, a lot of it is such dumb humor, but done in the smartest way. And it's very thoughtful. The entire movie is so, like, you can tell that care went into each decision being made.
Yes.
It wasn't just like, oh, this is what they're expecting, so just, buy the book, do, the big gory kill, the dumb
Yeah.
humor.
Oh, before we move on from discussing the nuts, while we're just listing things that we think are funny about them, this is I need to provide some context, because this actually might have been my favorite thing, and this is like, I felt very vindicated by this moment in the film. We were at a horror convention a couple weekends ago.
Oh my God.
And we were all hanging out. It was all the guests after the convention. It was a night we're all hanging out drinking, and I'm gonna say Damien Leone, writer, creator, Terrifier. We're all hanging out, and I don't know how it came up, but I mentioned I believe urban legend that apparently sometimes when they were filming, the actor that played Mr. Belvedere would sit on his own balls, and they'd have to stop filming. And no one knew what the fuck I was talking about.
Damien
It
didn't
was
know,
like
I didn't know.
Pin drop silence, and I'm like, no one knows.
I thought she was making shit up, dude.
And I'm Googling it on my phone. I'm showing it to everyone. And Damien is like, oh, well, if the phone says it, it must be true. And everyone's laughing at me, just like in the beginning of Toxic Avenger. I was the put-upon nerd that no one believed. Everyone laughed at me. And then the first line in the song that the Nuts perform in their music video is about Mr. Belvedere sitting on his balls. And I was so...
Wow. Speaking of being vindicated, you are the only. You're the first and only person that has ever caught that. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that you noticed that and thought it was a joke. And
Are we also the only ones to bring up the fact that Jankum is used in this movie, or has someone else mentioned that?
as of this moment, you are the only person.
Yay!
I thought that might have been. Where are y'all from?
Detroit.
Yeah, Metro Detroit.
I wasn't sure if maybe that was a regional like DC Virginia thing, but it was certainly a legend for us growing up.
It was just one of those, like, moral panics,
It was just
right?
a
Of
weird,
like,
yeah.
kids are doing
This is
this.
it was like
Yeah.
mid 2000s,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. For us, it was more like I remember hearing about it I was in high school, so it would have been the early 90s, but it was like, yeah, it was just one of those things that it was like somebody was like, no, dude, it's real. And everyone else is like, what? No, it's not. And be like, no, dude, it absolutely is. And they would have like, this is kind of pre-internet. So there was no phone to sort of prove it. It was just like somebody said that somebody said that somebody said, and therefore it was real. Um, and I took it on faith that like it in my cluster of, you know, DC area, Virginia, high school friends somebody out there would hear that and register it as a joke. It may be like 1% of the population, but it would work for somebody, and I'm thrilled that here we are.
Yeah, that was a throwback for both of us. You'll be pleased to know that Jenkum was a thing even in the 2000s in Metro Detroit.
Maybe it took that long to
It
migrate
made its
upward.
way up there as a rumor, as a spoken about myth.
The Jenkum cartel spread
Yes, yes.
across the country.
Yeah, it really was one of those pre-internet rumors that somehow spread, like the Marilyn Manson taking out his ribs thing. Like every school child heard that, but
How did we all learn?
How
or
did
like
we all hear that?
It's always Marilyn Manson. It's Marilyn Manson being the
Kid from the Wonder
kid
Years.
from the Wonder
Yeah.
Years. That's
I heard
right.
that one too. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good times.
Yeah.
I would love to talk about directing. I didn't realize until we went to the Comic-Con panel that Toxie's technically played by two different people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had no idea, and I think that that's fascinating. I would love to know more about that process because that's so interesting to me.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing to talk about with this movie. It was we were very lucky to get Peter, and part of the way we were able to do that was a scheduling thing because he's obviously very busy. And so we could get him over to Bulgaria for a couple of weeks and he could do the Winston stuff, but we wouldn't be able to get him for the whole thing. So we knew we were going to have to get a body double to be in the suit. And first of all, that was a real Peter put a lot of trust in us because it's kind of, I mean, he rightly thought that people are going to look at this and assume that it's his performance. And so, you have to be careful about that. And he put a lot of trust in us to not muff that up. And so I'm very grateful for that. And the other good stroke of luck was we found Luisa Guerrero, who is a very talented physical performer, fighting and tumbling and everything. She was a Teletubby at one point, not on the show, but on some. Anyways, she's done a lot of full costume work, is my point. And but she also did a really dynamite, dramatic reading from the script, and so we kind of knew, like, oh, she can do both. And she and Peter, we had a little bit of rehearsal time, and they worked very closely together. And Peter made a lot of tapes of him performing different scenes, like Toxie scenes. And she studied the hell out of them and came to set in the suit and performed his choices. His like when he would pause in a line, or if he's right, she would do her own thing too. But it was a really faithful interpretation of what Peter had done, and I think that combined with we had worked to incorporate Peter's facial features into the Toxie makeup, and so she played this version of him. It kind of looked externally like him, and then later in post-production, he came and put his voice back on it, and spent a lot of time. We didn't really. There was no digital fudging of it. He just like worked really hard to sort of like get the lines in with the mouth movement to the extent that, like you said, hopefully people would find it to be invisible. That's like the best outcome that we could hope for.
You completely forget. Like, and we knew it watching the movie. We're like, we know that's not Peter in the suit, but you forget sometimes because it's so seamless. Especially, I mean, it's part of the charm of the original that the voice doesn't match the performance so much. It's like very clearly dubbed by this a very different voice, but it's so different from that in that it's seamless. And was there anything on set playing? Like, did Peter record an initial version of the lines that you played on set?
No, we didn't play anything for her, but she had the videos on her phone. So for some of the more, maybe not running up and down the street, but when she's interacting with Wade, or she's got some kind of a monologue to do, she would kind of refer to them in the moment, and then she would like pop in and do the scene with that fresh in her mind. And added to which she just has incredible stamina. It was very, very hot. We
I
were in the
bet.
summertime, and she's got pounds of foam all over her, and she was just a super trooper. When somebody is they've got 25 pounds of rubber on their body and it's 105 degrees out and they're like super cheerful, then it's like nobody else is allowed to complain about shit. It's so
Hmm.
it sets a tone. She was great. And it was funny because like, she played the whole movie. And so I spent a lot of time editing the movie and getting used to the idea that Toxie's voice is a high-pitched female
Hmm.
with a British accent. And then at the end, suddenly it turns back into Peter's voice. And I was it took a moment of being disoriented, like, wait, what's this weird voice? Like Toxie has a British voice, but yeah, and like I said, the hope is that nobody knows. But at the same time, I really do like talking about it because they both did a really cool job with like this dual performance. I keep saying it's like I think of it as my version of David Prowse and James Earl Jones.
I was just thinking that. And a testament to her skill as an actor that her physicality and even facial expressions beneath the mask can match Peter Dinklage, who's an incredible actor, like
Yeah.
world renowned. And it just matches so well. She is doing amazing dramatic beats, comedic beats with her physicality.
Totally.
It's so good. Like, I hope she gets the proper recognition for this.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. I mean, yeah, it's like I said, it's fun to talk about because then you can sort of shine a light on the work that they did.
What was that makeup process for? You said like 25 pounds. How many hours in the chair was she doing? Was it like all one, piece, or was it gradual in layers?
Multiple pieces. It started out. I'm sort of approximating here because it's been a while, but it started out being about 3.5 hours, and then they sort of they would get a rhythm going, and by the end of the movie, it was maybe more like 2:45 or something like that. But there was arm pieces, leg pieces. This was a costume. The head was the biggest thing because this part right here had mutated eye,
Oh,
had motors in it, and so
Hmm.
like the sort of the muscles around it would move, and there was a remote control technician that would stand by the camera and sort of so when she's sad or the eyebrow goes up and down and that kind of thing. Which also from her perspective, she's just got a motor next to her ear going "Woo, woo," and so she oftentimes can't hear what the other actor is saying to her, and she's got to kind of like fake it to get through. But yeah, I mean, it was very cool to see it come together. Before, I always loved writing and I always loved acting, but the very first thing when I was very little, like a child, that sort of sparked my interest in movies, it was makeup stuff because of like the Universal movies, Frankenstein and Wolfman, and kind of like how did they make the hair appear on his face, and like how did they make his head flat and stuff. And my mom got me a book on Jack Pierce and sort of explained cheesecloth and changing the light and all this stuff, and I didn't totally understand all of it, but it was fascinating to be like, oh, this is how things work and how these characters are created. And so all these years later to sort of be in a situation where you can look at these really skilled makeup professionals doing all this cool shit was kind of like, I would sometimes sort of lose my train of thought and just like look at the Toxie makeup process and someone's like, we have other work to do, you've got to come and whatever, but it was endlessly fascinating to watch.
and who did the makeup effects for Toxie?
A British company called Millennium FX. So it was a team of craftspeople, and they were great. And in as far as like the guy doing Charlie who would do the remote control on his face, like that was also an aspect of the performance. Like once he gets sad and his face contracts, it's sort of like it's partly Louisa, it's partly Peter's voice, it's partly a guy with a remote control thing making his eyebrow do things at certain moments in the scene and do different things at certain other moments and stuff like that. So it was like a bunch of people all contributing simultaneously to the same thing. It was very cool to watch.
Yeah, it starts becoming almost like a Chucky or something where you have like the voice performance, but you also have all the puppeteers, and it's like at a certain point that characters, like how many different people have to come together to make this one cohesive thing. It's
Totally.
so cool. There's so many little references to other trauma stuff in this too that we were really tickled by. I mean, the big one that we love is the company's Body Talk, which the song from the original we're both obsessed with. That was something we talked a little bit about at the after party, but
Yeah.
we were just happy to see a little nod to it because we sing it constantly in our house. I think we noticed there was a Nukem High. I also heard, I think in like a news report. Is there anything else that people haven't noticed or that you can think of?
The end credits song is a cover of Nothing at All.
Oh, great. Also from Toxic Avenger.
By a really great band from Brooklyn called the Giraffes, like a truly fantastic hard rock band from Brooklyn, the Giraffes, and they covered Nothing at All by Race from the beginning. I mean, from the beginning, from the original. Getting my words mixed up. And so that was a big one. When the newscasters come on to kind of give updates about story beats. The backdrop of their news studio is the Trauma skyline, like the Trauma logo. There's a couple of businesses that you'll see in the background of the street. The big one is Bell Goody, which is obviously for Mayor Bell Goody.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And then there's another one that's called Pat's, which is a reference to Lloyd's wife, Pat Kaufman, who's the film commissioner of New York. That was sort of like once we got into the design portion, especially when we were over there on the back lot and we kind of saw what spaces need to be filled or whatever, I would talk to the production designer, was this very great designer named Alex Cameron, and we would just sort of talk about like whenever there's an opportunity to kind of say hello to the fans of the original, whether it's a logo or a name or something like that, to try and like sprinkle it in there. And it's just meant to be like, if you know, you know.
Yeah, we talked a bunch about Peter, obviously the star of the show, but the rest of this cast is also just incredible actors. I mean, from Jacob Tremblay and Taylor Page, who's in
Zola.
which we were big
Zola.
fans of, Kevin Bacon and Elijah Wood. These are all actors who like have a lot of esteemed works in their catalog, and it's so funny to me that they're signing up for the Toxic Avenger remake. And I know that in the case of like Kevin and especially Elijah, they have a fondness for horror. Like Elijah produces a lot of horror movies. Come to Daddy is a very off-kilter, fun like horror comedy that we love. So obviously there's an element of that appeals to them, but I don't think they would have signed on to do this movie if they didn't believe in the script and in the direction. So that must feel great for you to be able to make a remake of this absurd 80s like exploitation film, but bring in all this A-list talent who believes in your script and your direction, and having them bring this to life.
Yeah, I mean, hugely. And I think once we were able and lucky enough to get sort of Peter at the center of it, then it's sort of like people are, I feel like, maybe drawn to it because it sort of it has this, he adds a little bit of weight, you know what I'm saying? And so Elijah was an easy sell. I wrote that part for him. I told him early on before the script was done that I was writing a part for him, and he was kind of like, "Oh, dude, I'm in." So he was kind of like in no matter what. He's, as you say, is game for anything. And Kevin was delightful. I didn't know what to expect when we sent the script to him, but he was very quickly game for it, and I like the idea that I just think he's hysterically funny, and I think like at least lately some of his he like I'm trying to think, maybe I'm missing something, but I think like he's maybe thought of as more of a dramatic actor, and I felt like that like this could be something that could be a fun change of pace, and that he could do something that he's naturally very good at, and so that was a lot of fun just to sort of assure him that he could turn it up to 11, and that would not only be not a problem but very appropriate for this type of movie. Yeah, Jacob Tremblay, fantastic young actor. I felt it was an embarrassment of riches. I
Yeah.
mean, felt really, really lucky to have a cast like that. Julia Davis, all these great character actors that came. A lot of them came from um, London, like Sarah Niles and Annette Badland, Johnny Coyne, um, and they all just sort of populate the movie with these weird, interesting kind of characters that are all kind of acting in their own particular way, but it all somehow sort of works together, like Taylor is very deadpan and like what's so funny about her to me is that she's so like dry and deadpan, and that's the style of her comedy, and Kevin is very like big Dracula kind of hilarious type stuff. And it was just, it was a lot of fun to have all these different talented folks on the movie. And I was also, before I knew anything, like I knew I wanted to figure out some way to engineer a cameo for Lloyd. That seemed very important. And
Yes.
actually, like there was a time, and we ended up not being able to do it. But I was like, can we get Mark Torgel in the movie? Can we figure out ways to do that? And this was in the middle of COVID. We were in Bulgaria. There was like complications, and it ended up not being able to happen. But I felt like getting a Lloyd cameo was important to do. And so that's why, if it makes sense, I wrote the part of JJ's roommate, who really didn't need to be in the movie, but I wrote that part so that I could play that part so that he could sort of like be established as this background guy that is like noisy and loud. The point of which is that Lloyd he can pop up at the end of the movie and tell me to knock it off. It's kind of like a version of Get Off My Lawn.
Yeah.
But I just like the idea that like his cameo would be basically shushing me, which
Yeah.
kind of like I'm the boss, you knock it off. Um, and so that was another little fun piece of casting that we were able to do.
Is this true? Did Jane Levy play the voice of the insurance representative?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I love her.
Yeah, she's great. I knew her because she was in the first movie that I did, and she's a good buddy. And so it was as easy as like, can you do this voice part for me real quick? She was down to do that. So it's like whenever possible, I like to sort of try and keep the band together.
For sure. I feel like all the best horror filmmakers do that.
Yes, yeah.
They have their people, and they stay loyal to them, and just like working with them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's always fun sort of connecting with new people, but like, once you have a relationship with somebody, I like to try and keep your mind open to figuring out ways to extend that, and get to work with them again, even if it's only in a voice capacity.
So I know that this was a long process to get out in theaters. I'm so glad that's finally happening. Unrated too. Thank you. That's Cineverse. Cineverse
yeah.
doing it, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
They did it very successfully with the Terrifier 3.
I know that it's been a while since you filmed this and since you've done post and everything. So what do you have going up next? Do you have another project lined up?
Getting another movie off the ground. It's got more in line with the first movie, a little more like real world as opposed to Toxie cartoonish style. Not that I wouldn't want to do that again, but just to sort of keep the zigzag going. It's going back to a little bit more grounded, realistic type comedy, but it is a comedy, so see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I just hope that people give this movie a chance, because I know that especially the people who are into stuff like the original Toxic Avenger, they're sometimes averse to remakes or like new movies, and it's like I hope that they give it a chance.
Yeah, and I hope too, I mean, granted, we haven't seen the new Superman yet. I mean, speaking of trauma
Yep.
alumni, James Gunn, but it's got the same, I think a lot of what people like about the new Superman, from what I gather, is its earnestness. And there's a lot of that in this new Toxic Avenger, too. So definitely check it out if that really speaks to you. Because that's what I really liked about this, is it's in that kind of vein of, like, I don't know, doing the right thing, and sometimes you gotta do something. I really liked that about it. The very specific, like, not being a bystander kind of thing.
Yes,
I thought was
that
really
theme.
nice and really specific, and yeah.
And very resonant nowadays, I'd
yes,
say.
yeah.
That's very kind of you. Thank you guys very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, and thanks again for this movie. Again, we watched it under the worst possible circumstances, and, like, were won over completely, like, a few minutes in.
Yes, we loved it.
I think that's honestly such a testament to its quality, because the way you watch a movie affects your perception of it so much, and so many people don't realize that, and they'll think they don't like a movie just because they saw it when they were in a bad mood, and for it to overcome that, I'm just like, hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
But I also hope you get to see it in the theater with big sound and big picture.
Yes. I want to
Absolutely.
see it with a crowd.
A crowd, yeah. I want to hear the crowd reaction, because again, we've talked a lot about, like, how sincere and how much heart it has. It still has all the crazy gore.
yeah, it's
of the
also
trauma
disgusting.
movie.
Yeah.
It's gross in the best way, and we love it. Like, you merged all these things wonderfully. So thank you, Macon.
Thank you guys very much. This was a fun chat. Please let me know if you need anything, and thank you for having me on.
Absolutely, man.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll talk again sometime.
Very cool. All right, y'all take care.
You too.
You too.
See ya.
Bye.
Hey, Lloyd, how's it going, man? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, James. And please thank all the good people at Dead Meat for promoting Toxic Avenger and Uncle Lloyd here. So
Absolutely, we love to do it. I mean, you're a forebearer of everything we stand for, encouraging independent cinema and making fun, sleazy horror movies for us to enjoy. Like, so much respect for you, Lloyd, and everything you've done.
well, it's really great to hear, James. And please hope Chelsea gets better. Tell her to watch Trauma Now. We have a streaming service. It's free the first month, Trauma Now. Then it's only $4.99. But we got all our movies and about 800 more there, of all independent. Many of them are classics like Frankenhooker and Basket Case and things like
Yes.
Maniac Cop, and as well as all the Trauma's 52 years of failed cinema. So there's a panoply of Traumaville for you.
We love movies like Frankenhooker and, the Frank Henenlotter movies. They just have
They're
that.
great.
Yeah, they're awesome, because much like trauma films, they have this, like, raunch to them, but there's also this underlying humanity to them. They're not mean films. They can be fun and gory and sexy and filled with nudity, but there's still, like I said, a humanity. It's kind of like an understanding and embracing of the underclass, which I see in a lot of your work.
Good point. Well, the underdog has been a big theme of ours, and Macon Blair has taken themes we've used for 52 years, and made them really explode and be much more of a film than we've ever made. The Toxic Avenger of Macon Blair is a masterpiece, an unrated masterpiece. It doesn't just have a lot of blood and guts, and it's got, like you say, heart. It's got the brain, the heart, and the soul of Macon Blair in the movie. Every cast member, from Peter Dinklage to Jacob Tremblay, try to give it the French accent, they all are devoted to the Toxic Avenger. And, of course, Elijah Wood, he's been a fan for years. I met him in the old days, when they were doing Murder Party and all that stuff, because they had all these movies at Sundance, and we were running Trauma Dance during Sundance for 10 years. And we got kicked out, of course, eventually. But we're going to come back to Boulder. Trauma Dance is a free festival. It's in its 28th year. And obviously the Toxic Avenger has done a lot to keep trauma solvent. But also we have about 20 other movies that keep getting revenue. And it takes time, word of mouth. Terra Firma, have you seen Terra Firma?
No, I haven't yet. Not yet.
Oh, it just broke even. 1999, we made it. $400,000. It just broke even. But it's on Trauma Now. It's great. Just nobody's seen it. It came out, got good reviews in New York Times and LA Times, I can't remember LA Times, but New York Times liked it. But, nobody knows about it. So finally it's getting, word of mouth. Rupert Murdoch can have all the money in the world, but Fantastic Four cannot buy for word of mouth.
That's true. Yeah. And I hope that, this new Toxic Avenger gets good word of mouth because I was so impressed by what Macon did with it and how sincere it is and how it's weird to say it's kind of mature, which you wouldn't expect from a trauma movie, but just like emotionally mature and those themes of the fatherhood and Peter Dinklage feeling like just the challenges to himself as like a man and a parent, like watching all that stuff unfold along with stuff like the crazy nuts running around. It was so funny and so heartfelt that I'm curious how Macon got the job. I'm assuming you were the person who chose him and what made you
No,
choose him for the
that's
job.
not 100% wrong.
Oh, okay.
It's Alec Garcia and Macon Blair. I don't know exactly how the cast was selected. I'm just a producer who's given notes and met with Macon a few times, and he wisely ignored my notes because filmmaking should be the director's event. The director should have total control. That's what makes art. A painter doesn't have people painting with him. And I don't believe that Nathaniel Hawthorne had co-writers.
Yeah.
Shakespeare. I think. I mean, there are people who question the authenticity of who wrote Shakespeare, but I don't think it was a team. I think it came out of the brain of one brilliant person. Same with Flaubert, Madame Bovary, one of the greatest novels of all time, which we are writing our own version now. Martin Murray, who wrote the film we shot last summer, The Power of Positive Murder, which we're editing, which is in the fine cut stage. He's writing this, and so we keep going. But the spirit is there in Macon Blair, and he's not afraid. He doesn't have fear, and he doesn't go for this red carpet bullshit. He lives in Texas. He's got a family. He's a real person, and he cares about the movies. He loves cinema, and that's really where it should be, loving the art. He reads books. He goes to museums. He's a real person. He's real. It's not just there for the red carpets and the bullshit. The
Yeah.
premieres and blah blah blah. And that's very rare. James Gunn loves Eli Roth. These people and Trey Parker and Matt Stone.
Yeah.
They still love trauma. I just saw them at San Diego Comic-Con, and they were very welcoming to us because we ran into them there, and they.
Oh, yeah, because your panel was right before theirs, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Trey and Matt both spent some time with us and talked about us at their panel, as did James Gunn. And, we've got these younger people Sean Baker, who, had the best film this year, at least.
Yeah, Nora.
A lot of these young people who were kind of like you, who grew up on trauma, they are now touting trauma, so it helps. So it's all word of mouth.
Yeah, it's especially interesting with Matt and Trey being so prominent in the news right now because of what they're doing with South Park. I feel like a lot of people don't realize that you, through Trauma, distributed Cannibal the Musical, which was their first film.
We took it on when it wasn't finished, and we told them, go to all the big companies. This is brilliant. It's hilarious. It's wonderful. And nobody got it. So Trey and Matt came back to us. We finished it and brought it out as best we could, and it's one of our best successes. And obviously, they don't hurt either. And this recent episode with that horrible woman who works for Trump shooting crypto and
Shooting the dogs, yeah.
the only bad publicity we got on the original Toxic Avenger was shooting the dog.
That's right, the blind woman's dog, yeah.
The only bad letters we got was about that. Nobody cared that a young boy's head was crushed by the wheel of an automobile and then backed over. Leni Riefenstahl, Leni Riefenstahl, who she was? She was Hitler's propagandist. She invented propaganda, Triumph of the Will, and Chaplin, of course, did his famous Great Dictator. But she was in there with Hitler, and then she came here. But she's one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. But she was at the original Toxic Avenger investor screening because my stepmother brought her. And she brought a Supreme Court justice with her from Germany. And they, she didn't
What
have
they think
much
of the movie?
Yeah, she sat through the movie, and we had a couple of investors who walked out. Well, one guy walked out because he brought his 13-year-old kid, and I warned him, don't, it's 1984, the world is not going to appreciate Toxic Avenger, so be careful. And we see everything with my son. I said, meanwhile, the minute the head crushing, he was dragging the kid out, and the kid is like, "No, I want to stay."
Yeah, and that happens
But
early on
Lenny
too.
Riefenstahl, look her up. She's
What's funny to me is imagining her leaving that screening with the song "Body Talk" stuck in her head, like flying back to Germany and just being like "Body Talk."
You're right. It's an earworm without a doubt. Yeah, it's
It's a
great.
good one, yeah.
Andrew and the star Miranda, the woman who plays Andre Miranda, sings it,
Oh,
and
okay.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Corey Feldman's father wrote the song.
I didn't know that. Wow. Okay.
Right? Well, there's some question. There's another guy named Bob Feldman who maybe they work together, whatever it is. The origin of that song is not quite clear, but we have the rights to use it. And it was perfect for the movie. And Andre Miranda, how lucky were we that she played Sarah? We did it right. We got lucky. We spent about $500,000 less. And I saw the movie with my wife recently in a theater, and we both said, "Hey, we got it right." And, in the fullness of time, it's got the heart, and Macon Blair does it beautifully. The Joycean epiphany that Peter Dinklage creates as Toxie, where he, explodes and decides, I'm going to make the world a better place. I'm going to make a difference. It's beautiful. It's great, and I can't imagine the general public and the Troma fans think they will love it. I can only think they're going to love it. I've
Yeah, I
seen
think so too.
audiences. I've been with audience where there are old people, and they seem to get a kick out of it. And times have changed. Museum of Modern Art showed Return to Nukumai, a world premiere, which was made recently, which is just as disgusting and whatever. It's more trauma than ever, and the audience loved it. It was mainly older, subscribers who the husbands probably wanted to see a little sex and violence, and but they loved it. They all stayed and clapped, and we had a Q&A, and same with Romeo and Juliet, James Gunn's screenplay. We had a Museum of Modern Art, and the curator. It was in a series with Martin Scorsese and the Coen brothers. It's called something, I don't know, the best, kind of the most exciting movies of the year. The one that won Cannes Film Festival, and there was Return to Nukumai.
It's so
And
funny.
when he showed, well, when the curator at Museum of Modern Art showed Romeo and Juliet, he told the audience, "This may be my last night of employment here, but we present it."
Yeah, I think a lot of people probably don't realize that James Gunn started under you, co-writing and did he direct Romeo and Juliet, right, or associate
No, he
director?
wrote it. He wrote
He
it.
wrote. Okay, he wrote it with
And
you.
he had
Yeah,
a lot to do with directing. He's associate director. I gave him some
yeah.
credit because he definitely had a lot to do with directing it, without a doubt.
And now he's, of course, all over the news with Superman and rebooting DC's cinematic universe and such. So I have to imagine that with Gunn and Matt and Trey so prominent right now, like, how do you feel? Like, oh, my children are making such a good impact in the world.
Well, they're very nice to us. That's the main thing. They remember their parents.
That's
Eli
great.
Roth,
Not everyone
too.
does.
Eli Roth talks about trauma. We've got a lot of younger people who are getting trauma out into the ether, which is very nice, and we need that because we have no advertising budget. And, well, trauma's for 52 years, fan fueled. The original Toxic
Yeah.
Avenger, everyone on it was a fan from our earlier movies. And throughout trauma, everyone who's worked for us, Andrew Miller and Adam Pelletier, who have just reconstructed the original Mr. Melvin, which was a road show that we had written for the theaters, but the theaters wouldn't take a 2-hour movie. So Michael Hurst and I had to chop it up into part 2 and part 3, and we messed it up. But now they put it back together, and Mr. Melvin is terrific. We just had a premiere in Montreal, and standing ovation for Mr. Melvin. Another one in Florida, and so Toxie's got sort of a new, intellectual Toxie that's supporting Macon Blair, I think, and it's a great toxified world right now.
It'll cause people to like go back and watch the original, I think, and
Yeah.
also I haven't seen Toxic Avenger 3 or 4, but I did watch part 2, And again, I was struck by how sincere it was. This like love and appreciation for Tokyo and Japanese culture in the 80s when, we put it on and we were surprised at how much of a love letter to Japan it was at the time.
Well, wait till you see Mr. Melvin when everything's put in properly. And because there's a lot of great, funny stuff that takes place in Japan, played straight. The reason we went to Japan is partly because I majored in Asian studies at Yale, and I took a lot from Taoism, from Chuangzi, Taoism, Yin and Yang. And Japan at that time was the most expensive country in the world. We were the cheapest company in the world, so we thought, let's go there and we'll make a movie. And luckily, we ran into people who liked Troma, and history was made. But Kabuki Man, Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD, that came out of the fact that in the 80s, the Japanese, because the yen was so high, they were buying up American assets. And there was an anti-yellow, one of the Congress peoples, it's a Pearl Harbor all over again, and yellow Pearl, it was real racism. And so that's what got me into Kabuki Man, to show that he's an American Bronx cop eating hot dogs, but he threw a quirk of fate, he transforms into Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD, a 2,000-year-old Kabuki with a few, heat-seeking, low-budget weapons, heat-seeking chopsticks and flying projectile parasols and 16-bite sushi. And Vinegar Syndrome is in the better 4K now, and they're doing a terrific job with the going back to the cast and major players of Kabuki Man. It's going to be great.
Oh, that's great. Vinegar Syndrome does great work.
As all our movies, Vinegar Syndrome is the best. They're better than Troma for physical goods. They're the best. And do a wonderful job. And they love cinema. That's the thing. Joe Rubin and all his people like Troma. They're all there because they love movies.
Yeah.
Andrew Miller, who created Mr. Melvin and is writing the new Kabuki Man, he's got a pass so he can see 4 movies a day or something. They all see everything here. They all seen Weapons. I never even heard of it. And
Weapons is great.
Yeah, see, you know it.
Yeah. I'm mostly based on YouTube, and you've had issues with YouTube in the past, right? Wasn't Troma kicked off of YouTube?
Twice, but the fans made such a stink they put it back. The channel.
And was it the problem with like the violence and the graphic content that you had up there?
I think it was just bullshit because the fans went crazy and they put it back twice. So maybe it was an algorithm, maybe, but the bad news is that Amazon, Netflix, and the so-called major streaming services, they've lowered the rates they give the independents. So we started Troma Now, and I think your wife and you would love Troma Now. There are all sorts of buried treasure, wonderful films. Fatty Drives the Bus, made in Chicago. Nobody's seen it. It's terrific. You'll love it. Cry Uncle by John G. Avildsen, who directed Rocky and Karate Kid.
Oh, yeah.
Cry Uncle's hilarious, wonderful film. It was a piece of garbage, and John Avildsen hired David Odell, who went on to do the Dark Crystal and many other films.
Oh yeah,
he wrote it, and Cry Uncle was Rumpelstiltskin made chicken shit into chicken salad. I learned from these guys. They love cinema, and I was lucky enough to. And Troma has Cry Uncle on Troma Now. It's not known. People don't know about it, but it's a great ride. It's terrific.
And I feel like you talking about all these filmmakers and the ones that we've mentioned earlier just goes to show the importance of independent cinema and things like Troma, because this is where people learn. This is where people who love movies are able to do what they want with the craft, not bogged down by studio restrictions and what is the most marketable thing. It's for them to be able to make just pure art. And I feel like that's so vanishingly rare nowadays that you really provide a service by enabling that and fostering that.
Well, it's working on a Troma movie, at least the people who have worked on it, who have never been on a film, they say it's better than film school. And film school at UCL, at USC, what is it, $100,000 a year? NYU was 80,000 or something. And here you can, you don't, maybe you get paid a tiny amount, but it's like going to film school, and we're not union, so we have first time directors of photography. The guy who wrote Power of Positive Murder, he's incredibly, I've read his work. He's had plays produced, nobody knows him, but it's his first screenplay, feature length. That's a great thing. I don't know that I have any talent, but I know talent when I see it.
Yeah, and that's a
And
valuable skill in itself, right there.
yeah, exactly. The group I hung around at Yale with were running the Film Society, and they were heavy into auteur filmmaking. The French, the Cinémathèque Française and the Cahiers de Cinéma. As a bourgeois, I speak French naturally, and I could read all those magazines.
Yeah,
And
yeah, those
Godard
magazines.
and Chabrol and all those guys went into my head, and I bought into the idea that the film should be the director's event, and I don't want to be involved in a film that isn't. Mercedes the Muse out in California is making Poultrygeist, one of our most successful movies. She's doing the reimagining from the gyno point of view, from the hen's point of view. But she doesn't take notes. What am I going to do? It's her movie. She's, good for her. She's
Yeah,
made 3 or 4 other movies that are on Troma now. They're terrific. They're not for everybody, but they're great. I think they're terrific, and I'll keep supporting her. And we gave her Poultrygeist. That's a big deal. She said she cried when she got the responsibility. So it's
that's
shooting
great.
now. It's in L.A. Where are you located?
I'm in LA as well. Yeah.
Oh well, no. She's shooting in Northern California. But
Okay.
hey, August 29th, August 28th, come to the Gardena Theater. You'll see Toxic Avenger and the Macon Blair Toxic Avenger. And then on the 29th, we'll be at the Brain Dead Studios in Hollywood for Tromawood. And we're showing 5 Troma movies over 2 days. And Count Smokula does songs for us, and many of the cast members, and it should be very colorful to say the least. And it'll be a real loving affair. And Rose Giovanni, who played Humus in Poultrygeist, she runs the club, or the entertainment part of it.
Oh,
And
cool.
Brain Dead Club, it's on my Instagram if you need the address. And if you're ever in New York, come and visit Tromaville. Come and visit our building and
Oh, I
meet
would love
the
that. That'd be amazing.
yeah, yeah, see where the magic happens. And my wife and I live in Manhattan, and we have, thanks to our kids moving out finally, we have plenty of guest rooms. So Roger Corman, who's helped me out for 50 years,
Oh
stayed there
man.
with his family, and we have the Roger Corman suite for you. If you're in town, you seriously, you're more than welcome.
Oh,
So,
we're really good friends with Catherine Corcoran, and she speaks so
oh, well,
highly of
she's
you.
got my numbers. Get my phone number from her. Yeah.
Yeah,
She's in
yeah.
hashtag. She wrote her own part for hashtag Shakespeare shitstorm, and
Oh,
yeah, and she had to work with a little kid, one of my grandchildren, when the grandchild was a baby, like 3 years old, and terrific. It's a really horrifying scene too, and not because of violence or sex, but just the idea of it is horrifying to begin. Hashtag Shakespeare shitstorms based on the Tempest, Shakespeare's.
Trauma has such gross elements and dumb humor, but it's all done in such a smart way because I feel like a lot of people probably don't realize that. Yes, you went to Yale, like you are very educated. Obviously, talking to you, you like have such a wealth of knowledge about all things cultural that it's so funny to see the work that comes from that because it's the best of both worlds. We need the dumb stuff in our lives, but like thoughtful dumb stuff.
Well, again, it's yin and yang. The opera, Madame Butterfly, that the aria Un Bel D is the theme of Sergeant Kabuki Man. Blah, blah, blah. It's in other words, Michael Hers. Michael Hers has seen and knows everything. He is the most knowledgeable person that anyone's ever met, and he's seen every movie, and he's a lawyer. He was first in his class at Stuyvesant High School, which is the best school in public school in New York, and he loves cinema, and he just doesn't go out in public. But it's he reads. We go to concerts, we go to theater. As well. We as Holmes, the great a great Supreme Court justice who saved the First Amendment. Yankee from Olympus is a novel about the book about him. He says a person cannot live unless they, I'm using the wrong pronoun, but they, that's because I'm woke, they take part in the actions and passions of their times. And the trauma movies do that. And Macon Blair has done it. James Gunn, Eli Roth, Trey and Matt. Right, Trey and Matt, my God.
Yeah.
He got the president's penis with eyes in it. And of course, James Gunn and I had Harry Balls, the penis monster, who was in Romeo and Juliet. But at that time, we had a tough time with the. But now it's okay. Now it's on national TV. But we had a difficult time with the Motion Picture Association of America because of, it's different times. Luckily,
Yeah.
times
Yeah.
have changed, and now you look at a movie, you look at one of the trauma movies, and you wonder why would anything in When Nature Calls or Sergeant Kabuki Man be clipped? In Squeeze Play, a guy holds up a cucumber. It's a joke. Nothing other than holding up the cucumber. We had to cut it out. It was a kind of a slightly
Suggestive.
it was implied some kind of phallic thing. But they cut it out. Anything they could cut out, they'd cut out. So we got fucked, and yet we had to go out theatrical with 35 millimeter prints. And luckily, home video came along, and that helped. We got into that early. We got into DVDs before the machines were in people's homes, but we started making them and putting them out. And so and the internet we got on 20 years ago. We got on when it was still dial-up. We were on
Yeah. The
CompuServe.
56K, the phone noise. I remember those days.
Roger Ebert and I were on CompuServe, and he said Lloyd Kaufman's the only studio head who's able to dial up, and he was a big fan. He was at Cannes. He talked to us at Cannes. He's in the first documentary, which has a lot of Toxie in it, All the Love You Can, which is on Trauma Now. And now there's a new documentary called Occupy Can about how we got kicked out after 50 years. And Toxie's all over it. It stars Toxie actually, but it's going in the festival route, the genre Fantasia and Sitges and whatever. But by the way, Troma Now is free the first month, and you just email and get a free month. Then it's only $4.99. But if you don't have money, you just get another email and put it up there, and you get a second. You can go on forever. That's what I do, and save a fortune. And it's well worth it. Troma Now is great. It's terrific. And
Yeah.
there are films there you will never see anywhere else. There's one called The Miranda Murders. It's art, but my wife walked out in 30 seconds, and she's New York State Commissioner of all media. It's New York City Commissioner of all media, film, games, art, theater. But she was New York State for 20 years, appointed by both Democrat and Republican governors. And then she retired to work with me on hashtag Shakespeare Shitstorm. And then she got called back because the cities because of COVID and the strike, the city and the unions and the billionaire class needed someone who could really do a good job. And she's been there for the last few years and
Oh, wow.
never worked harder.
Tireless. Yeah. Sounds like it.
Well, she's a debutante from the Southern Belle, and very different from the Troma way of life. And you'll see it in Occupy Can. She's the only adult in the room.
It's good to have those.
Yes, yeah. In fact, the focus groups people wanted to see more of her.
Thank you so much for your time, Lloyd. It was a pleasure to talk to you. I would love to chat more. I hope we can in the future.
Well, come to the Gardena. Let's we'll put you on the list and come and August 28th.
Okay.
2 movies, and then Tromawood. I think you'll have a blast there, and there's plenty of booze and that kind of stuff.
Great.
Actually, the
Speak my language.
Gardena. I think the Gardena has a bar, as I remember. So
All right.
I usually investigate that if I'm going to a theater. Otherwise, I have to bring my own.
Yeah, just sneak it in with the flask.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, you're a guest. If you need a place to stay, we've got it. If we're in town, and come and visit.
Thanks so much, Lloyd. Can't wait for people to see Toxic Avenger. I think they're going to love it. I loved it. It's great. And
Well,
it was
sing
great
it to
talking
the
you.
world. Sing it to the world. And,
Oh, I will.
Thank you so much, and please thank Dead Meat. And I hope
Absolutely.
Chelsea gets better.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it, Lloyd. I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.